Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this series of talks, A New Life with the Rav Laitman. Hello, Rav Laitman. Hello. Hello, Nitza Mazuz. Hello. And recently we've been talking about health. We'd like to learn from the Rav Laitman a new approach to our health, to our moods, to things that bother us and those who are close to us in our day-to-day life. And each time we focus on a specific subject out of this large field of health. And today we've decided to focus on anxieties and concerns, worries. And we know that we all experience this in our daily lives, sometimes more, sometimes less. Sometimes it's diagnosed as an illness, sometimes not. And sometimes it can even come to heart attacks. So we're here in the studio and we want to play a certain situation where we're all, where there are 10 people sitting in the studio, and Nitsa will present them in a few words. And it's as if we're going to think as if we're in this course that is developing this new consciousness, awareness for us, and you are helping us do that. So Nitsa, who's with us today? Let's go into our talk. So with us is a woman of 32, mother of twins. She has increased pulse. She suffers a lot from this issue of anxieties and worries. It also gives her problems sleeping. A 45-year-old man who's overweight, another man who's an engineer in high tech for 5 years. He's had backaches that keep returning. A 48-year-old woman who has strong stomach aches that she began having as a result. She discovered that her friend had cancer. And 2 more people who have a lack of appetite, lack of energy, and 2 more young men who especially are concerned about losing their sexual drives and drive to do the most basic things in life. So the subject for today and what we thought about a lot in the group is, and we saw that what's common to and shared by all of us is that we're all worried, up to even anxious. We suffer from anxiety. It's a scale that we all feel to a certain extent, and we all have this in life. But for us, it takes up most of our thoughts. Most of the day, we're concerned about life. Life has become something that scares us. It's stresses us out. So the first question is, how did we reach such a state in which life, which is supposed to be the most natural thing, has become the scariest thing? I don't understand or agree with what you're saying, that life is a natural process that's supposed to be without stress and problems. If we look at the animal kingdom, because we're all we are is really a development that came out of the animal degree, they are constantly concerned for their survival. This is their life. They're constantly worried about building their nests and surviving the threats of those who want to eat them, to prey on them, and how to take care of their offspring. They worry from morning till night. We just think that the bird sits on the tree and sings so nicely. Why am I not as free as this bird? And the fresh air and the sun. We don't understand their lives of the animals, and also the vegetative level. This is a life that is full of fear and concern and anxiety each and every moment. And it's an instinctive fear that compels you at every moment. Nobody is free of it. We're in this constant push of this plan of existence, and to exist, to survive, is all of their life. So who's even thinking of pleasure? Where do you see pleasure in all of this? This entire life is only suffering, truly, except that we humans, instead of filling ourselves with the true plan of creation, we've taken our ego that evolves within us in order for us to reach the human dimension, the speaking dimension that is alike to the general integral nature. We've taken it, this ego that constantly grows within us, to a completely different direction, where we want to use it to enjoy ourselves and to fill ourselves and to, as much as possible, decrease our stresses and concerns. And this is the opposite, complete opposite of the plan of creation. You know, this is like a bow and arrow, where first you have to pull the arrow backwards with the bow, and then release it, and then it flies forward. So this is what we've done so far in the general plan of nature. We went backwards and seemingly developed humanity. It's so good and nice, and everybody's having such a good time. Whereas truly the path has been so full of suffering and blood and war and power and disappointment and suffering and rape and endless wars. But still, we wanted to fulfill our ego for our own good until we finally reach our days. In our days, a situation in which we see that it's not going to work out this way. And from now onwards, we're already beginning to release this arrow from the bow and for it to fly properly. Now, so first of all, this approach to life is not good, and you'll soon know how to relate properly to life. We're going to talk about that. Now, what is our nature? Our nature is the will to enjoy in all kinds of levels and degrees. We've already spoken about this many times during these talks. It's a will to enjoy. This desire to enjoy is not just that I am constantly developing in order to find what around me I can enjoy. It means that the desire around me, it develops constantly, not in quantity, but especially in quality. Because I can always eat more. Instead of eating 250 grams, I'll eat a kilo. But I'm really limited in that because I have my senses, my hands, my ears, how much can I enjoy through them? Because that's pretty limited by nature. We're talking about qualitative increase in pleasure. That is the difference. If you go into a regular restaurant, you're given simple food, and sometimes it's more healthy and more tasty than a very expensive restaurant where you have 5 people serving you, but they give you just a little bit in your plate because you're an intelligent man. So, and maybe it's not so tasty, but everything's so luxurious and high quality. That's actually the difference. Our will to receive, it's constantly becoming more and more of quality and more complex, from the still vegetative animal levels to the human level, and also within the human level, what's been developing in the last, say, 100,000 years, it keeps developing in quality. I constantly want to fill myself up with more qualitative fulfillments. Wisdom, science, culture, education, society. And this pushes me to evolve. I don't seek for 1,000 meals, just one meal, but of a different kind. I don't want to have an orchestra with 1,000 players in front of me. I just want it to be of higher quality. That's what we want, for everything to be of higher quality. So this is our will to receive that's constantly developing. Now, the will to receive that's developing there are two phenomena in it, which are the main ones: pleasure and suffering. If it's a desire to enjoy, a desire to fulfill oneself with pleasure, then either it feels a lack of pleasure, it's not happy with anything up until even the worst things, and up to relative pleasure to the full whole pleasure. That's our entire life, from the feeling of troubles and pains to the feeling of good, nice fulfillment. So because we constantly this is because we want to constantly fulfill ourselves, each person according to his mood and to the conditions, according to the society that gives him all kinds of values and so on. And this is how we develop, and this is what concerns us from morning till night. How do I sleep? How do I see everything? How do I value everything? Each thing I see in different ways. It all depends on the values of society, which give us our attitude towards life. And also I have my own personality and character, according to which we see our life. We keep looking for things that are alike to our genes, to our reshimo. If I see a man or woman, then I immediately look at how alike they are to me, and how much they fit what I have inside. Or do I have affection towards them, up until even love? Or am I repelled from them, or maybe up until hatred even? This all depends on our internal reshimot, impressions, and this is how we see the world. So the will to receive is not just, and the will to enjoy, it's not just abstract. It's got an inner quality that develops in each and every one. And each one has like a storehouse of reshimot, impressions, genes, and one constantly seeks outside of him what is alike to me and what is opposite of me, what is opposed to me. And then, in accordance to that, a person is constantly experiencing movements in life, even physically, the way we move. And what we surround ourselves with, the way we see things, where we look at everything. We are completely run by this subconsciously. And we're constantly concerned and anxious about how I'm going to fill myself up in the most optimal way. The law of optimal fulfillment is to fulfill myself to the maximum with the minimum amount of investment of power and energy. And here, once again, there are the conditions with which I was born, hereditary ones, and there are conditions and values that I received from home, from my environment, from school, from kindergarten, and etc., from the internet, of course, and the television. And then, all in all, in all of these conditions that exist inside my will to receive, I walk around and seek how to fulfill my will to receive, which also grows all the time and constantly receives these different new influences. And therefore, anxiety is actually my permanent state, my life. This is an unending state within me to be anxious. It's just that we're not aware of it, that we're anxious. We're so used to it. And when I go and try to fulfill myself, there are all kinds of mechanisms that we have for compensation. How to not be so anxious, and if I don't get something I want, then maybe it's not so bad. Also to suffer less, because maybe I shouldn't want things that I want a lot but that are too far. I'm constantly checking, should I or shouldn't I? Just like it's written that a person does not yearn for the daughter of a king because it's too high, it's too far out of my reach. We constantly bring ourselves lower to levels where it's worthwhile for us to worry. And of course, there are these circles around us. The circle of health is very important, my internal feeling. Maybe something that's more far that I'm less concerned about, but if it's in this circle where I feel myself, then it's more important for me to deal with right now. And in this circle, there are also all kinds of external influences. Like you said, that we have two men here that have a lack of sexual appetite. So this depends on society. I can live well, quietly, without these concerns, and that's fine. So I don't have them. So what? So I don't need to run after it. Maybe I don't receive certain pleasures, but thank God I also don't need to give myself away to all these efforts, and instead I rest. I read some nice books, I listen to music, I go on trips. To fill this desire, internal desire, it takes up a lot of our time, a lot of energy, a lot of strength and nerves. And a person who doesn't have to satisfy this need, he could be very happy and free and to enjoy a lot of things in life. But it all depends on society, how much it pressures him and how much he becomes anxious about it. Because they're telling you that this is their source of anxiety. Maybe I'd give them some simple course that it's not worthwhile to make this desire bigger. Maybe the opposite. Maybe you should consider doing other things and maybe use this time to do 1,000 other things. But this is just an example of how much anxiety can be artificial, relatively speaking, because it's perceived as not normal, as a malfunction. Why? But see, look at me. I say I'm getting older, and there are a lot of things I can allow myself because of the limitations of my body. But I find myself that I'm satisfied with certain things, and I have more time for other things, and suddenly I discover things that didn't interest me before, and I find that there's what to enjoy in them, and not less than before. So it's all relative because the will to receive is different for each one. One person enjoys music, the other enjoys soccer. One person listens to a concerto, and the other person, for him, he prefers to see a soccer team that for him, this is the symphony that he listens to in soccer in this field. So it's very relative. Let's go back to anxieties and worries. This is the constant background in our life. A person is constantly finds himself in anxieties and worries. Even when he enjoys having a little less anxieties than before. It's as if he's not on the level where he constantly thinks about it. But there hardly is anyone who has such a feeling. And there is no creature even that feels itself completely free of anxieties and concerns, because the entire creation is a will to receive, a will to fulfill oneself. If I can say that there's a thing, just like Faust, where this is the best moment, there's no more that I want in life, there is no such thing in life. Unless it's an illusion that passes swiftly. We already know that. We know that it passes. So our question is, how can we bring a person to such a life in which he'll feel himself in accordance to his nature, to his genetics, in accordance to the environment that gave him all kinds of habits and values, in accordance to what he now experiences, all kinds of changes that he feels in the media, what he hears from the outside, that he needs this and that, and anxiety over security and lack of food and lack of air and what's going to happen, heat, coldness, the heating of the globe, and a lot of other things. How can a person bring himself to a state in which he's balanced, let's say, where his anxieties and fears and concerns are on such a level that on the one hand they exist and then he fulfills himself in the right way, because without concerns and anxieties then he doesn't move. This completely moves us in all of our existence, the body's physiology and mechanics, and our existence in the way we advance in life and everything. So first of all, they need to be balanced. They need to be aimed in such a way that I can cope with them in life and advance in the right way. What does this mean? Let's say a woman, a mother. She knows that she needs to cook food at home and to wait for the kids to come back home from school. And she's concerned about what happens to them at school and what's happening to her husband. When is he coming home? And maybe she herself doesn't feel so good, and each one of the family members. And together with that, she works. She goes to work because women today all work. In short, she has a list of concerns and problems, right? Right, especially for women. And at the end of the day, she copes with them. She can hold them all inside herself, and she copes with them. Aside from what she has at work, let's say she's a secretary or something, then she has 1,001 things that she runs around doing. So how can we bring a person, a woman or a man, well, men suffer less from this. Women have more strength to survive between these thousands of sources of fears and anxieties. So how can we give each and everyone such support in our society so that they will, each and everyone, every man and woman, feel themselves to be balanced, comfortable, and good means that a person has concerns, anxieties, fears, and to such a level and extent that he can cope with them, and not that he doesn't care and he just throws himself on the hands of society and the public. Take care of me, or I don't care if you take care of me or not, or I don't care what happens to me. I'll go out on the street, just like there are people on the street. No, but he has enough problems and concerns in order to uphold himself, just like every person in society, normal person, to treat himself, to build a family with children, to give them what they need in life, and to continue in such a way from generation to generation, on the one hand, and on the other hand, for him to feel safe and relatively comfortable, secure, on a certain level of balance that is neutral and average, not more or less, which will hold him and keep him at what we call the point of health. So then we need, if so, to think, what does this actually depend on? We see from our research that this completely depends on society. The influence of society on a person, it controls him 100%. And if we could organize society in such a way so that instead of TV shows, instead of all kinds of scary artificial things, I'm not talking about the truth in life where we disconnect a person from life and we don't tell him anything bad going on. Like the news. Well, yeah, the news are fine, but I'm talking about normal news. It depends how you organize them. And we need to truly organize the things in such a way where a person will be nourished by everything in life, in whatever exists on earth and in our existence. And he needs to receive the correct flow of information that is balanced, and information needs to flow to him freely, but without us distorting it in the in the media in order to bring him anxieties and all kinds of distortions on purpose in order to draw his attention through all kinds of phenomena that are artificial, actually, that we create. So if we organize the environment in such a way, then I think we would get rid of all of it. Maybe not exactly of all of the anxieties, but because it seems to us that there are still such things in our world that we don't know how to overcome and not talk about. How can we not talk about tsunamis, hurricanes, wars? I think that if we relaxed human society, we'd also get rid of those of hurricanes, all those natural phenomena on the level of the animal, vegetative, and still life, and also the concerns on the human level. Man wouldn't. It's like with kids, where they start bickering and fighting, and they get warmed up, and each one influences the other. If the environment was more calm, then we wouldn't get so warmed up, and we didn't go to war. By that, we would get rid of 100% of our problems, from the anxieties, fears, and all kinds of threats in our feeling to the action, to whatever happens in actuality, also in the individual lives and also in the life of humanity in general. So this is actually the best treatment, because each time we don't balance society and give them medication, because all these medications, it's just people wanting to earn from them, to make money from them. It's just getting people to smear something on their leg, but having them jump from rock to rock through all these obstacles only so he would break it or bang it against a rock. So all of the treatments that we administer to treat anxieties, they're not beneficial. They don't help, because the influence of the negative environment is so great and powerful in our days that all of the medications, they won't help unless we shut a person off. We'll give him drugs. We'll cut something off of his ear, of his eye, so he won't see, so he won't hear. We'll need to disconnect him, just like he disconnects himself. So he uses alcohol and drugs. He doesn't want to hear the world. He just goes to some lone island. Maybe he takes some machine gun and wants to kill everybody. It's society itself that brings such phenomena to society, to the world, where a person hates his environment because it's a source of so many threats and disturbances. And therefore, I am certain that this is the source of the problem and the source of the solution. We cannot change our desire. A person constantly develops, just like we said at the beginning of the talk, in a qualitative fashion. Our desire goes from lower to higher and higher qualities. Our desire becomes more and more sensitive to external influences. We used to not care if somebody shouted around us, if something happened in the next street. Today, I care about what's happening at the other end of the world, in the opposite end of the world, because it depends on me. I belong to it. I depend on it. It influences me, and therefore, today we need to understand that our concerns, our worries, our fears, our lack of security, helplessness, the threats. And we shouldn't start talking about all of this. Is it just our imagination? Is there truth to it? It doesn't matter. What matters is the way a person feels, and he'll feel them more and more and more, even if there is no justification to it. He'll feel it more, and we have to consider only his feeling. It's all very individual, personal. It all depends on the person himself. So we need to understand that the more we advance, the more helpless we will feel in treating anxieties, fears, desperation. This will be a source of all the problems and especially health problems. This is for sure. Because if the will to receive is the basis of our nature, then of course then all of the physical systems depend on it. And this is why we need to see this as the source of all illnesses. Not psychosomatic illnesses, but actual illnesses, physiological ones. And all the systems of the body. And therefore, until we solve the problem, this great problem of the influence of the environment on a man, this negative influence of the environment on man, we won't see people who are healthy. But from every generation, from generation to generation, we'll see them suffering more and more. And yet together with that, we'll see how unable we are to cope with the phenomena that will come. We won't be able to, because these phenomena that will come will be more and more high in their level, in the degree. It's not that the leg hurts, the blood systems, the lymph systems, all kinds of things. Maybe suddenly he shakes a little bit. No, we'll see problems that will be more of a kind, well, from higher degrees in the systems of the body and the systems of the soul. In the nervous systems and the psychologies and psychiatry. And more we'll see people who will be borderline between healthy and ill, according to psychiatry, and even more and more psychiatric phenomena, just like now. You can ask specialists, and they'll tell you even now that 20 or 30% of people who on the streets, they are actually defined as psychologically ill. They're not threatening to society. They can be. They can live between us, and so a great percentage of these people, this percentage is going to grow. Because the percentage of people who has anxieties, and not even the kind that we're aware of, but the sub-anxieties, we hear something from somewhere, it passes through us as if we didn't hear it and didn't see it. it still remains within us, and it passes through our systems and receives this kind of it's stored within us, and we live with it, with everything that we absorb from the environment. So it turns out that our natural systems are not able to cope with so many daily problems that are that are advancing and becoming wider. We know that if a person goes out to space to some special mission that takes a great determination and power from him, let's say with all kinds of fears and anxieties, then before that he receives special treatment, he receives supplements and exercise, and he goes through a lot of preparation. And also afterwards, when he's completed his mission, then he goes and rests, and in order to go back to his normal life, and he gets special treatment for that. We are actually all on such a mission, in such a race for survival our entire lives. So of course, this erupts with all these phenomena. When you were speaking, I tried to remember the time when I was a kid, when I was younger, and I remembered that, like you said, there were always worries. It always was there. But now it seems that this concern, this worry is in the air. It's everywhere. It's something you can't escape from. And I try to understand from your words the connection between a person who has a concern to be happy, that he'll have his well-being, to society. How come society that's become more cultured and more developed? What happened? No, no, no. Society has become worse. It's become more egoistic. I see it on kids, even in kindergartens, what competitions they have. They're already very smart. At 3 or 4 years old, they're already as smart as kids used to be at 8 or 9. If once a child needed company from age 6, 7, and onwards to start and playing with others, today they already play together at 2 and 3 years of age. They already understand. They have such social impulses. They already see each other and compete at school, and we know what kind of environment they have with the queen of the class, and then the heroism. It's horrible. This didn't happen in this to such an extent 50 or 100 years ago. Children were more simple. Today, it's so, with everything they see through the screen. So it seems to us that they're used to it, but they're carrying with them from school, even from kindergarten, but especially from school, from third, fourth grade and onwards, they carry together such pressures, stresses, internal distortions, horrible impressions that they've been living in. They're so. It's really sad to see. And they can do nothing about it, and we can't do anything about it unless we change in society in general, and that will influence them too. We need to change our media, the general environment that influences all of us, including our children, because a child carries with him from the younger ages, the youngest of ages, a negative influence from society, from the environment, and it's constantly is illustrated within him more and more. And this accumulation, it of course it's the basis to all the problems, to all of the illnesses. And at the end of the day, nobody enjoys their life. So to say that a person is born into a calm life with such an influence of this environment is impossible. Well, if somebody is able to live somewhere far away in some village, then his life is in accordance to that. Like we said in the beginning of our talk, the development of our ego can take us Instead of taking us in the good direction, it's taken us in the bad direction. And today we're in such a state where we've pulled the arrow backwards all the way, and now we need to release it and go in the opposite direction. We've reached a state where we find ourselves in a crisis. The influence of the environment, of society, is so negative because we've developed our society in such a negative way that its influence is all of us in such a bad way. And so now we find ourselves in this self-scrutiny where we see that we have no choice, that this same influence of the environment has brought us to such states that we find ourselves in a general crisis. Not just the crisis in our psychological relations, but these relations have begun to influence our material lives. And the fact that the world has become round and we've entered this integral system where we're all dependent on each other, here we finally begin to be aware of how the influence of the environment on us, on each and every one of us, because we all exist within this environment. It all is all closed up in one little circle, little round ball. So we see that we have a problem. If we want to have a good life, we need to change the influence of the environment. Our education, our culture, the way we relate to each other, this is actually what is ruining our lives. And in this mutual dependency, there is no choice. We need to see the direction in which we need to change. We need to change in the direction of the good approach and attitude. We need to clear all of the bad influences in the media, in the environment, to teach a child, a person, how to live the good life and love thy neighbor or friend as thyself. It's to try and bring the correct methods and into relationships, into romantic relationships, into relationships between neighbors, and the integral education we need to bring to schools so that each one will receive education, not just knowledge and information. We need to build systems of education that will bring the person, will build society. Actually, if we put all people through the correct schooling, then we would receive this new generation that would at least live correctly. Maybe not us, but at least they would. If we take care of that, of course, life will change. And also, the way we treat the ecology and all kinds of systems that we depend on. The economic systems, social systems. Then, of course, everything would improve. It all depends on education, through which we can change the influence of the environment on a person. And then all of these phenomena that of fear and anxiety, none of it would show up. A person would advance in his life, and this constant feeling of anxiety and fear to fill himself, but to such an extent that this would develop him. He would feel a little bit hungry, but this would be in relation to the fulfillment that he's about to receive. He would feel a little bit of a minus, a little anxious, that I want something, and that I yearn for something a little bit, but I already see how I can fulfill this feeling. We always need to have the feeling of hunger together with its fulfillment, with the possibility to fulfill oneself. And this is life. So then we have to feel some lack, but not to the degree of anxiety and threat and fear, but to such a degree that it pulls me to its fulfillment, the good and possible fulfillment. So you connected between anxiety and competition, and I identify with that a lot because I know that me and everybody, when we're in a competition over, well, all of our lives is actually a competition. We feel that in a kind of race that we cannot. Well, this is the ego that pushes us. It depends. about the way we fulfill it in society. We don't need to destroy any inclination that we have. So how do you create positive competition? Well, why don't you compete and how much who helps more to and gives a good mood to others? It all depends on society, what kind of values it uplifts. But it needs to make an effort not to destroy a person, not to destroy his options and opportunities to express himself. Also, competition in sports. It's good to a certain degree. Competition is good in healthy activities, activities that are beneficial to society. Let there be competition. Why not? Compete over how much you can benefit society. That's very good. We need to allow that. We need to fill all these needs, even playing cards, playing something else. All of this Las Vegas, let it stay, but in a healthy way, in a good way. If a person has the impulse, the inclination, I'm not just saying this, I went there to see it. And I saw all these things from the side. I went and saw how it's built and how people are hooked on it. It's a natural impulse within a person because we come from the animal degrees, the animal level. We're used to living in the forest and to capture some piece of mammoth to bring it home. You see it on people, and also the competition with some game when you compete against yourself. We need to allow this for people, of course, but it needs to benefit them. That's the whole thing. So how do we do now? We're in this workshop. How can we do something practical to, because you're talking about a change that's a change of society, but what influence do I have on society? I see that psychologists do such activities. They bring people to some small society, they build it, they have them support each other, influence each other. They build a kind of protective wall, a small wall within which we can receive like a baby. It depends on the mom, so the rest of the world is it doesn't he doesn't really see him as threatening because there's something next to him that's calming to him. So it's the same here. People come, they're like little animals, and they come together in a small group. Each one comes as close to the other as they can, and then they feel safer. So I see that this happens. I see that psychologists and therapists do this as well. They organize groups. Inside it, they build an environment. As much as this environment influence, and have this environment influence its participants, and this is how they go about it. And they have them keep in touch in this mutual connection to support one another and also to come to receive treatment again. There is a financial matter here, but aside from that, this is how it naturally works. People see that they can receive support this way. Wait, explain to me, why do I need a society for? Why do I need a state for all these mechanisms that I build for myself that will protect me? It's also the same thing. This is the way nature is. Our atmosphere, the magnetic field around the earth. These are all protective systems. So now a person needs a very powerful protective system against very powerful internal negative influences. Can you explain that a little more? Because I feel this is exactly what I need, a protective system against negative influences from the environment. We have a very big source of threat these days, a very big source of disturbance, which is the environment. I watch a whole lot of TV. A guy killed his girlfriend, or the opposite, or he was killed. A father raped his daughter. At a school, there are so and so many kids who fight, and one criminal killed another criminal, and these countries are fighting, and these people go out on the street and break everything and destroy everything, and those people in Africa are suffering. And soon they will come to Europe to eat it up, and more and more. So I look at the world and I can go crazy. Before I go to sleep, in order to relax and let go of my stresses, I watch TV and see the news. The truth is, there's nothing more supernatural. How can it be? A child, before he goes to bed, his mom calms him. She comes to him. She kisses him. She puts him in bed. She covers him up with warmth. She sits next to him a little bit. They drink a little milk before bed because it calms you down. And here we go and watch the news. It's something that how can a person fall asleep after that? All these things are like a movie that turns around in his head. How can we not have these kind of psychosomatic problems, these anxieties, fears, desperation, threats, until they actually can reach physical illnesses and psychiatric problems, and they can deeply disturb the brain. So what is this protective package? Well, you can build this protective package through workshops, all kinds of round tables, to build a kind of protective shield of small societies that will be as a wall for all of the friends inside them that are sitting behind this wall. And they'll be nourished by this good positive influence. Let's say, I'll give you an example. I know from my teacher, the Rabash, who would listen to just the first minute or two of the news. I had to turn it on for him. He would listen to the beginning of the hour of the news, and if they started talking about what some minister or politician said, then he told me to turn it off, and if the news began with that, then he didn't want to hear it. And then when they began talking about something else, then he'd want to hear it again, just a minute or two. So what do I want to say by that? What did he like to hear? Not from the radio, but in general in life, except for his profession. Jokes. Jokes! Wherever there is this good inspiration where you take something and turn it around and suddenly it seems funny, he was very happy about that. And then I do this for him. I tell him jokes and he was very happy about that. Because this is where you rest. Also, we feel the pressure of the problems that are unsolved. And here there are problems and a joke. Usually you bring two things that contradict, and suddenly, through laughter and some change that you make, you solve them. That's what I think. This is the cure, except for the environment. In addition to the environment, that can be very beneficial to all kinds of cases of anxieties and fears that people suffer from. Wait a minute, I want to understand. We said we need to build this protective package. Right, we build these small groups. Within, we create this influence in the environment of the participants in the group. Also, you'll have families in there, not just one member of the family, but all the family with the kids. And then from time to time, let's say once a week, for each and every group, we need to give a workshop and a little talking, a little playing games or activities. That's on the one hand. And then they also communicate during the week. And also they need to have a radio that they can communicate through, or I don't know what, which will give them good news and jokes. It's better to have jokes without news at all. Humor. Yes. So you're saying humor is a cure. It's a kind of cure. It's a very great cure. Yes. And you should teach a person in our lectures, in our talks, how to sift the information. When he gets such support from his close environment that we organize for him, he needs to know how to simply disconnect himself, not just sift, not to listen to 100% of the waves of trash that come to him from the great world around him. He disconnects himself from these things. This is not important. This is stuff I don't need, and so on. Just like what I did with my teacher. So how does a person know what to sift, what to uh, listen to, and what not to? Does he just develop a kind of selective hearing? He already knows. What gives him different phenomena. So he disconnects himself from different things. We only listen to what's most necessary for life and for my job, and what's not necessary, I disconnect. I fill my ear, my desire, instead of with this threat and horror film, I fill it with jokes. Even if now, if I'm in a situation where I can't study, I can't read, I can't sleep, I like to listen or see something, usually a comedy or nature or something funny, but funny in a respectful way, in a nice way. Why not? And it's not that by that I'm not a serious person, because all the news and all of that horror and all that pressure, somebody is creating this on purpose in order to influence us. And the more powerfully he does this, then the more attention this person gets in order to sell his advertising space. So why should I depend on it? If this was truly serious fate, my life, tsunamis, important economic changes, that's something else. But 99%, if not 100% of what we receive what goes through irresponsible people that have no interest in this except for making a gain, making a profit. So we need to filter everything that we receive from the environment in order to not bring ourselves to anxieties and concerns that are unnecessary. So with fears and worries, I usually see that it begins with our thoughts. It begins first of all with our thoughts. Even if I wasn't listening to the TV, it's because you don't have the positive environment that influences you. Now we've located the problem and we talked about how to solve it. That's it. Either you get these positive influences to influence you, or you build a good environment next to you. Also, our time is up for this talk, so we'll be happy to continue in our next talk to talk about this. Thank you very much, Rob Laitman. Thank you, Nitsa. Thank you, our viewers, for being with us. Don't be afraid. Come to us a lot. We'll bring a good environment together in a new life. So until next time, all the best and goodbye.